Anyway, good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Werma, and I am responsible for development for EssentialCFO. The sales guy, Kev, you missed the discussion. He is, at this moment, getting a root canal, poor guy, and so he's going to miss. And can everybody see my screen? No?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Yep, we're good.
Excellent. Okay. Now, what we've done is we have a product called EssentialCFO, and the purpose of this product is to give you what I would consider superior reporting for QuickBooks at a reasonable price. And for those people who've worked in this space or looked at reporting, what you generally find is one of two things. You generally find it's sort of a superficial reporting platform. Now, what that would be something that where they would say, well, you start with a trial balance, and then if you're really lucky, they'll say, then you map your trial balance into our account structure. When you see products like that, they're somewhat superficial for two reasons. Number one, the account structure is not flexible. And then number two, it's a trial balance, which means that there's no transaction level detail. And then the second thing you'll see in business intelligence is what they call it, but reporting for QuickBooks is non-flexibility. So they'll say, here's your dashboard. And they'll say, this is what we want you to sell to your clients, and it's very non-flexible. Neither of those worked for me. I was where you are. I had a practice doing outsourced finance work, outsourced CFO work, and I still have a couple clients that I work with. They won't let me fire them. And so I've been where you are, and neither of those work, because when clients come and want something, they don't usually take, well, that can't be done as an answer, right? They want it. So we built this product with that in mind. Now, what we've done this year that's different, and you'll see at the show, is we've come up with what we call a la carte pricing. And so this is busted down into elements that we give you that you can just take and drop in with your clients if you want. And then you'll see in a little bit where you could take and modify these elements or create your own elements if you want to. So this runs the gamut from, I have a simple client, he needs simple things, I don't want to change anything, I just want to drop something in, all the way up to I have a very complex client, and they have very unique needs, and I need to design everything from scratch. We can support any one of the scenarios that are in between. So what we're looking at here is this. We're logged into actually this is the sample consulting file for QuickBooks, if you've ever played in that file. And these dashboards are wrapped around that. I also have the construction file that they have, the project file, and we'll look at that too. And these dashboards are wrapped around it. This dashboard we're looking at is called financial performance. Now, what this does is this allows you to judge how a customer is doing. And just to sort of give you an overview of how we've structured it, across the top we have categories, if you will. These are dashboards, but they're groupings of dashboards. So financial performance actually has 5 different things underneath it, right? And I'll step through these real quick. And the idea here is that you can present a lot of information in a consolidated area. Because again, if you've worked with dashboard products and they're forever and a day out and forever and a day long, people tend not to look at them, right? I know I don't. I want to see something, I want to see it pretty quick. So what we have here is, and again, these are all modifiable by you. We'll go over that. You can change this if you want. But what we're looking at here is a simple dashboard that has, as a percent of revenue, right, all of the elements across the income statement, some balance sheet ratios, right, asset turnover, whatever, current ratio. You can see they're pretty good here. And then the return fields, and you're going to see some weird stuff here because this is a sample file. I'll point it out to you as we go through. It's fun. And then down here we have just some basic charts. Right. Now the first thing is these charts you could change if you wanted to. Right. So this is a simple year-to-date comparison. This is the current year. This is the year previous. Right. So year-to-date -1, and this is year-to-date. You could tell it's the sample file. In February they did something and then nothing all the way across. Now, if I come up here, this is the first sort of fun part of this, and I say I want to look at gross margin, you'll notice things start to update. So these charts just change. And this is gross margin. This is gross margin last year. And then here it is. This is the actual activity by month, and then here's the balance, right? And these just tend to update. So these dashboards are interactive, right? I can say, I could change the focus of what I'm looking at based on certain perspectives. So it could, if maybe I'm interested in SG&A. And, you know, now we'll see SG&A. This is always what you don't want to see in SG&A. Little spoiler alert when we talk about internal controls. See an SG&A spike, that's always a problem. And what these charts themselves are interactive too. So I could come in here and I could say, you know what, I want to change the report type to a pie chart. Now this is going to look kind of silly because it's just 12 months. But if I start to say, okay, well, now I want to see this by class, right? Well, you know what? I'm going to drill back up and look at it by quarter, right? These charts are interactive. And the idea here is that you can actually do an analytical work on the web, right? This isn't a traditional dashboard where it's just sort of presenting information and you look at it. It's interactive, right? And of course, I could keep growing up if I wanted to. I could look at it, and now I'm looking at it by year. Great. So, and if I'm done and I say, you know what, I'm finished, if I just refresh the page, it'll go right back to the way it was. So, you know, I can say, I'm going to move this out and I want to look at it, and I'm going to pick Excel this time, right? So what will happen is it'll generate a spreadsheet that I can then open up, and it'll give me a picture. This will be a picture. This won't be interactive, but here's the picture of what I was looking at here. So I could take this, cut it, and move it somewhere, right? And the nice thing is this allows you to put together the board packages. So for everybody who's ever done a board package, what you end up with is you need a coloring book for the board, right? You don't want to give them anything they could play with like this in the middle of the meeting because it can really lead to bad things. So we use this, or I used to use this when I was doing board packages for clients. It's helpful. So this page right here is also data interactive. I could come here and say, you know what, I want to go back to November 30th, and this will move back. So this is fixed to the year. This is fixed by 11 months, right, a rolling 12-month window. And you'll notice that all of the charts change again. So now this is just a ratio analysis. So now I'm going to actually go and look at the income statement, right? And the idea here is the ratio analysis is a page that gives them just basic information so that they don't have to go look too far for things. Now what we're looking at is an actual income statement. And you'll notice here we have an income statement, right? And there's some fun stuff here. You'll notice some stop lighting. This is kind of nice, something that you won't normally see. This says the current month, previous month, we're down 51%. That's red. Lose 51% of your revenue, and that's a big problem, right? Gross margin's down. That's red. Net income's down. That's red. But you also notice the signing is correct. Revenue is down. Cost of goods sold is down, and that's green, right? Most of the time, even in QuickBooks, what you get is a variance that says actual minus expected, right? And then if you have expenses are higher, then you get a positive variance, and that's tough to explain to a client. So we changed it so that it would actually make sense. The other thing we did was we tied everything to the chart of accounts as it exists in QuickBooks. This is the QuickBooks chart of accounts that you set up, right? So if you change QuickBooks, this will change. There's no mapping. There's no uploads. There's none of that. It just simply takes what you have. And this is also linked. So if I look at revenue, right, if I go click on revenue, all of the charts down here will update. So what we did here was we did two things. We gave you a rolling 12 months of revenue, rolling 4 quarters, and a rolling 5 years. It's a sample file, so magically everything happens in the last year. But we also did a class breakdown here, year-to-date, quarter-to-date, and month-to-date, right? So when you're looking at revenue, you can quickly see useful information. Now, if you don't need class, If class isn't what you want to mess with, this is changeable. You could come in and make this item. You could come in and make this any one of a number of other things. The other thing to see is that for real estate purposes, we've hidden stuff. So if I come up here, click on date selection, go look at class, I could start to mess with the class itself, right? I could come in here and say, I want to look at Deborah Wood. And when I hit OK, I'm going to see an income statement for this class, and then I'm going to see a rolling 12 months based on revenue here. And this doesn't change because we didn't tie class to it because this is a breakdown by class. So great. But if I were to come over here and say customer type, first of all, let me change Deborah back, right? And then let me change customer type and say I want to just see yellow pages-based stuff. And you're going to see some fun things here. Things on this are strange. I now have an income statement for that customer type, right? A rolling 12 months, and you can see that there's some problem with the yellow pages here. And then a class breakdown just for that customer type. Very useful information, and we have all kinds of stuff. Item, transaction type. This one's particularly fun for accountants. So if you have an issue with a particular transaction type, we actually will track that and let you look at it. So you could do an income statement just for invoices if that's what you wanted to do. Over here we have vendor and vendor type, and of course we have my favorite here, sales rep and job type, right? So you see these fields in QuickBooks. I doubt many people use them because it's tough to report on them. So we bring them in, and you could do an income statement by sales rep or job type. You'll see later where we do agings by sales rep, and that's really fun. Sales reps love it when you can pin them down. And but it makes these fields useful in QuickBooks. So I'm going to go ahead and take this back to everything here. And I'm going to stop for just a second and ask, does anybody have any questions? Does this kind of look interesting? Does it not look interesting?
It looks really, this is Diane. It
No,
looks
it's
really
good.
interesting to me. It'll be fun to hear how you handle the mechanics behind handling this.
Oh, it's all simple. Because keep in mind, there's two things that I hope everybody understands. First and foremost, I was where you are. All of this was built around stuff that I've been personally asked. I've had the same problems you have, right? Clients come to me and ask for stuff. You know, the client progression, right? They hire you, and I need to know this information, so you build it in Excel. That's step one. Step two, they love it. They do it again, right? You bill them for it, no problem. Step three is they start to look at the bill and say, why am I paying you to build a spreadsheet, right? And then step four is you get stuck with this. I need this report. The spreadsheet work never changes month over month. I mean, it may get streamlined a little bit, but then the client starts to get resentful for paying for that every month, and they don't want to change it. And you know, it's kind of a vicious cycle. This was built out of that because I know clients don't like to pay you to do repetitive work. They just don't. For whatever reason, if you're billing them by the hour or by the task, or if you're doing this for a fixed fee, spreadsheets stink, right? They're good for a point in time, but it's no fun. And the second thing is to know I'm the world's laziest man. I do not like to do things twice. I want to do it once, make sure it's right, and be done with it. And you know, as we walk through this, the clients will never know how much work is involved in this or whatnot. So from a time-saving perspective for you, it's great. For them, they will pay as long as it's not horribly expensive to get things done. So we'll go through actually updating. I'll show it to you. It's easy. I built this specifically to be simple because when I deal with clients, or when I did actually, I don't take any new clients now, but when I did deal with clients, I wanted something I could put in and forget about. So, you know, the balance sheet, I'm going to move to this real quick. This is just fun, right? This is entertaining. You can design everything you see here, right? I just did this, but you could design everything you see here, and we're going to briefly touch on that with the report writer. So this is a potential revenue stream for you and your clients, and it just becomes another tool that you have when you get a client to say, let's design something that helps you to see this. And you know, if this is in the back of your mind, and I built this with clients in mind, because when I would take on a client, I would say, you know, your monthly fee is whatever it is, $2,000, $1,000, $3,000, and here's how I'm going to communicate stuff to And you can see it's already built. Once you're done, you're done. And you don't have to update it very often. And if you do, it's really not that complicated. So from a margin perspective, this helps you add margin. But on the balance sheet, what we did here was we gave you a balance, right? Here's the last year's balance, and last month, last quarter, and then at the previous year end, right? So this was the balance last year at this time, and then this was what it was last year at the end of the year, right? So again, owner's equity, no good, right? And then everything else, surprise, surprise, is great. If I click, I'm going to get the asset balance for the 12 months, and then the rolling 4-quarter and 5-year balance. And of course, they always have something screwy out there. And then this is the balance broken out for this transaction, or this particular element, by item, by class, and then by transaction type. And this is one of my favorites. Your clients will never care about this, but this just helps me know what's going on, right? Why is this here? So, the balance sheet, my guess is maybe 2 in 10 clients will care about this, but it's here if you need to talk to them about it. And then we have a couple other things. We have a simple budgeting module. For those of you who have messed with the budgeting tools out there, there's some great ones, and I'm certainly not going to pick on them because they're fantastic. Adaptive Planning is very good. Plan Guru is very good. But one of the problems I had with budgeting tools when I was in your position was simple. They're very complicated. And what I always found with budgets was you had to put it in Excel. It's just going to Excel at some point. So we embraced that. And what we did was we built a tool that will generate some simple spreadsheets for you that you can update, right? It's a very flexible tool. It allows you to do it by whatever elements in QuickBooks, anything across the top that you're looking at. So you could build a budget. And it's a simple budget. The other thing we did was we gave you the ability to build multiple budgets. So you could build 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 budgets a year and say, for the client, here's best, worst, and most likely case. And then you could track against it here, right? So if you come here under date selection, you'll see that I could do it by plan. Now, I have only one plan here, and we're still in the middle of uploading a budget here because this is still fairly new. But you can imagine it would just drop in and give you the variance, right? And then down here, here's monthly, activity, budget versus actual, and then year-to-date budget versus actual. And again, when we design this to be relatively cost-effective. So our budgeting plan, I think, is $12 a month per client, right? So very inexpensive. Most are $50, $60, $70 just for the budgeting. And the idea here is we give you a complete tool set to manage this. And of course, there's a balance sheet. You can budget by the balance sheet. We don't care. So if you want to do a bunch of capital budgeting, you can certainly come out here and do that. And the same deal, monthly and then year-to-date, budget versus actual. And these budgets are very simple. Now, this dashboard, all 5 of these tabs that we just looked at, plus the piece to connect, is $20 a month. So it's $19.99 for what we've looked at so far. And my guess is most of your clients for $20 would find this useful. And you would see everything just as it is. Now, the budgeting is an extra $8, fine. So it's $28 a month for the client. But my guess is that they'll see this. I think it's 8 or 12. I got to look. But the idea here is to give you so that you can buy just what you need for the client, nothing more. And if you need a bunch of stuff for the client and it's a big client, my guess is they won't care. My experience has been more or less they're okay with spending the money if they see the value. So I'm going to move on from here, and we're going to go to cash management. So this is the next thing. A lot of dashboards that you will work with are not very broad in QuickBooks. They don't give you functionality everywhere, and that doesn't work for me. If QuickBooks is the source of record for the company for performance, you got to be able to report on everything. So what we did here was we gave you a this is a simple cash flow statement. This is straight out of QuickBooks. All right, this is the QuickBooks cash flow statement. Here's the current balance, right? Here's how we've done current month, quarter, and year to date. And then compared to the previous month, of course, there was nothing in the previous year. And down here, what we have is we have actual activity. So we burned cash, we made cash, we burned cash, we made cash, and then the balance, right? And we give you a choice between monthly and weekly, right? So this is a weekly cash flow statement. If you have some need to look at weekly cash, you can do it here, right? And we drag it out. Oops, I need to move previous week over, but this sort of gives you a sense. And then here's the same weekly charts. And then if you budget for cash, because of course I'm going to give you the opportunity to do a cash budget, here it is. It's a big blank page right now. I haven't worked on it. We're starting to get to the edge of everything we've done. So this simple cash dashboard is $8 a month. If somebody needs cash, almost everything you hear from us is going to be about $8. Now, here's the fun part. If this cash dashboard, if any of these dashboards have something you need to tweak, you can change it, right? If this doesn't work down here, but you like this, it can be changed, and I'm going to show you that shortly. So now I'm going to step into AR. Now, AR is just kind of fun. So every client, they're always curious about AR. So what we have is we have an AR summary page, and this is still a little bit in process. I need to put something here. But what you'll see is total AR by customer. This is a graphical AR aging, right? Tells you by customer what they owe you. And then here's days sales outstanding. And you can see this is totally a sample file, 508 days. And then what we did here was we busted this down also so that you could come look at it in total if you have any questions. And now you get an aging. This is an actual active aging. So when I come here, I can look at the invoices outstanding for Bowden Imaging or the payments that they've made recently, right? And this is helpful information, right? Here's the total invoice amount and what they owe. And you'll notice there's a difference, right? Again, something QuickBooks won't necessarily do. If they're making payments, it's nice to know that, right? And this aging is, there's nothing you need to do to it. It's going to pick the aging up from QuickBooks. And then here in the details, and we've done the same thing for AP, so I'm not going to actually show that to you right now. But what we did in the details was we said, okay, I want to look at payments received by week by customer, right? And I want to look at open invoices by due date. And this is just kind of helpful. So as I look at this, I could say, okay, in week 49, this is due. Down here, what we do is we go ahead and we say, when should we see the money? So, you know, if I come in here and I click, I see in September, because this is a sample company file, Freeman Supply should pay us $4,500, and then in December I should see the $10,000 from Bowden and then the $2,000 from Weeks. Same thing here on the weekly, right? This will tell me by customer what week this comes in. These are kind of handy. This is the beginnings of a cash flow forecast where you could say, when should I expect to see money? When should I expect to spend money? And right now, this is just the AR piece. We have an AP dashboard, which is also $8 a month, that does the same thing for AP. So I actually had a client that had only AP and no AR because everything they did was journal entry and wire-based. There were no invoices. They didn't need AR, so they split it. If they need both, then they're available. Now, this is the very high-level sort of basic financial stuff. There's some stuff in the works right now, and I'm going to just show you briefly. For those of you who use the QuickBooks Time module, who either enter time into QuickBooks or upload it, we have reporting around that. So we, right here, and this is a little bit bleeding edge development. I'm still working on this a bit. But we will either tell you by employee or by customer the time metrics. How many hours did you bill? What was non-billable, right? Previous month billed, and so on and so forth. Same idea here. So if you have clients that are hourly billers, they're consulting firms, law firms, whatever, and they use the QuickBooks timepiece, this works fantastic, right? Everybody loves to see 78% of your time is non-billable in a month, right? In April. Which accounting firm would that happen in? But that's the way this file is set up. And of course, these are all interactive. So if I go look at Deborah Wood, this will all change and tell me what she did, right? She has a lot of unbillable time. It's kind of interesting. And, you know, down here I could see for her the revenue by customer and then the revenue by item. Now, this is driven by the time module, not the financial module. So if you've ever entered time and said this is billable, this will extrapolate revenue based on what you charge per item, and this will tell you by customer how much that revenue was. So very useful information, and very simple. And of course, you can budget by time. You could come into the time and say, I expect this many billable hours by employee. You can budget by customer. You could say, I expect this customer to do this many billable hours. You could split out the budgets. You could have two different budgets. You could say, I have a budget by customer and I have a budget by employee, or you could merge them. You could say, I expect this employee to work this many hours for this customer. However you want to do it. Very easy. And of course, in the customer metrics, I'm going to give you the same concepts. I'm going to have you look at the customers and see. Now, what you're going to find is they didn't actually in this file. This is just a little bit of fun with QuickBooks. Even though they put all the time in their own time module, they didn't bill that. They re-entered it to invoice it. So you don't see a lot of actually billed information here, right? That's why all the revenue by vendors is Deborah, because they didn't bill anybody but Deborah from the time module. Weird, but that's what they did. So what you see here is this is just some of the ones. So the other elements that we have that are coming, and they'll be there by the show. You should be able to drop by the booth and check them out. We're going to have a sales dashboard, right? This is this is not completely done yet. And the sales dashboard, we're going to have some fun stuff. You could tell I'm still working on development here. But we'll have some fun stuff by customer and then by sales rep. The other thing that we'll put in the sales dashboard is the sales order aging. If you've ever worked with sales orders, I have, and it's no fun because when you get old sales orders, you're like, should I close this? Is this still good? Is this bad? We're going to do an aging on that. If you come here and look at the sample construction company, right? Hang tight. This is there we go. This is GoToMeeting, not cooperating. You'll see that we're doing the same thing for project management. And this will have a PO aging in it so that you can look at open POs. If you've ever worked with POs, my biggest complaint about purchasing in QuickBooks is that it works the way it should, but it doesn't have all the elements it needs, right? I need to age purchase orders because if they're only good for 90 days, I got to go out and close it after 90 days. It's kind of a pain. And, it's something that you want to be able to report on and hold people accountable to. Accounting isn't responsible for POs and closing them unless they're told to, right? The last I checked, we don't manage that. So we have all of that coming. And then we have some other elements, too. Now I'm going to go to some of the fun stuff. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. This is the report writer. And I'm actually connected to one of the sample files here. And you'll see this is all of the work out there. So if I come here and I say I want to look at financial performance, it's going to load every element for that financial performance dashboard right here, right? And if you look, here's the percent of revenue, right? Here's the balance sheet ratios. And you could come out here and start messing with this. I could come in the income statement, and I could say, you know what? Down here, here's the report. Just take my word for it. Here's the report that does the class breakdown right here. Give my computer a second to catch up. And you can see here I'm looking at it by class, right? I could just as easily say, you know what? I want to look at it by item and move class back over here. And the report's updated to item that fast. So now when I start to drill around, I'm looking at items. And kind of useful, very interesting information. I've changed it that fast. If I were to save this, the dashboard would change, right? Amazing amount of time savings when a client comes to you and says, I want to change this report, right? There's only a couple of boxes down here you have to learn about. Of course, we have training on this. This isn't for everybody, and we understand that. So only certain people are going to be, we control this a little bit. Could you imagine how much fun I could have trying to support this? People calling me up saying, the project's broken, and it's not. It's just there's some training that you need to go through to understand this. Figure it's about 8 to 16 hours, and then you'd understand everything. Because there's some other elements here. If you look here, these are actual KPIs. You could design your own KPIs for clients, right? So this opens up a world of interesting possibilities for you. As the provider to your clients, you can build custom reporting elements that they can't take with them. right? So if they were to say, I'm done, and you were to say, fine, I'm going to pull the plug, we're done, they wouldn't get to take this stuff with them, right? So you could charge them on the way out and say, if you want to keep the reporting, you got to pay for it. You could move this stuff easily client to client. It works very easily to move client to client. There's a little import items tab up here, so you could save these out as separate files and move them client to client. It's nice. Again, I designed this myself to be as portable and easy as possible. And this right here means that you could take a blank slate, a $20 report, and if you put this option on that report, you could design a custom dashboard for them from the ground up, and they would never even see the basic reports. So this was the original intent of the product. Was I thought everybody would want to design their own dashboards, and they just don't. So if you don't want to, you could pick the ones we have. If you want to tweak them, you can do that. If you want to say, you know what, I just need the connector and the custom design option for this client, you could do that too. And you could build your own. So fun, entertaining stuff. If you get into this, you'll see there's a lot of things you can do. Up here, there's a lot of things you could create. You could create your own dashboard. You could just create a brand new dashboard. You don't even need to use ours. You could create all kinds of fun reports and grids, right? The KPIs are probably the most time-consuming, but these are going to be the most value for the client. As you can see here, you could change the stoplight indicators, just useful information. The other thing that we have that you'll be able to play with at the trade show is that we developed we developed it to work for everybody, but it came out of a construction client who came to us, was a requisition module. So this module right here is a purchase order requisition module. So for those of you, I don't know how many, is anybody out there, do you have clients that use POs? It's still awake? Did I put you to sleep?
Yes. Yeah, no, we're here. Yes. We just muted ourselves, so give us a second to respond.
Yeah. Everybody's all like, it's all comfy and warm. It's after tax season. Does anybody have any purchase order clients, right, that use POs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it fun? It kind of stinks, right?
Yeah. The biggest complaint is that when they get an order in, they have multiple vendors that they have to requisition the purchase orders to.
Right. Right. Well, we actually addressed that. What we did was we built a very simple purchase order process. And what this does is this creates what we call a requisition. So at this stage, it doesn't exist in QuickBooks. It just exists in EssentialCFO. But this is a very basic, and I'm going to just throw some elements out here so you can see. This is a very basic purchase order interface, right? So what you're looking at here is so QuickBooks is the one that restricts it by vendor, right? Just so you know. You can only have one vendor per PO. And this will create a requisition where you could do it for one customer, or you could go out and break it out by customer. But you can add whatever you need to it. Once you do that, down here at the bottom, you can say assign automatically. And what this will do is this will route it through workflow, right? So this is a little different. This will route it to workflow that we configure on our own. We can set up approval chains based on teams of people. So I am in a team, and my approval chain looks like this. This person approves up to 5,000. This person approves up to 10,000, right? And it will route via email approval to them. So accounting is not involved here. All you do is help them configure this, and then they can manage their purchasing on their own. They could go out, requisition, submit the requisition, approve the requisition, and get an emailed purchase order back with a 13-digit random number. Good luck guessing that one, because you know they're all auto-increment, right? I mean, how hard is it to guess an XPO number? All you got to do is know the last one. This is a 13-digit auto random number. Spits it out. Now what you have is you have an email in the requester's hands that serves as a purchase order. the purchase order is then uploaded into QuickBooks. All this happens automatically, and you didn't do anything, right? All you did was configure this to work. The idea here is a simple purchasing process, a simple requisitioning process, where you can get the field to be responsible. No more calling you and saying, I got to have this PO now, and you got to drop everything, go create it. You need it, you can do it. You're not in the middle of it. It's an approval process issue. So that's pretty cool, right? This works pretty well, and I was pretty happy with this because I was CFO for a construction company one time in 2008 when they cratered. And this would have been nice to have because when you needed a PO, they would call the person and they would just generate the PO. It's not very efficient. This works pretty well. But we took this a little further. We then said, okay, the person in the field now has to go out and receive the item. So what happens is you are responsible for this purchase order. You can either go close the purchase order, or you can go out and say, yes, we're done. It should have been this many items. It should have cost us this much. So this allows you to then push the item receiver out into the field. Now, if anybody, I don't know, have you all ever used the item receiver function in QuickBooks?
Yep.
Not very. It's tough because you have to do the receiving, and then you have to do the enter the bill against it. This says the person responsible for the purchasing now does the receiving. And then all you have to do is enter the bill against the item receiver. It's a three-way match in purchasing in QuickBooks. It's actually very interesting. This opens up a whole world of possibilities for you as an outside provider because this is one of the main ways that clients will interact with QuickBooks and say that they have to always be in the middle of QuickBooks, is generating purchase orders and to a lesser extent receivers. Now they don't have to. They can do everything remotely. And this is really cool because now you can say, you know, it's the end of the month. You've got open purchase orders. You need to get everything that's over 90 days closed by the end of the month. Either close the PO, which they can do themselves here on the item receiver screen, or do it, receive the item and accrue against your project, right? No more chasing them down, no more nothing. Because keep in mind that here, in the project management tab, and I'll show you, it's not done yet, we're on bleeding edge. This will be done by the show, though. Come see us at the show, and I'll show you or call me in a couple of weeks, and we'll go through it. There's going to be right here an aging, right? So you can see the open purchase orders, and then what are they current, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, or over 90 days. And this, you can tell them, this has got to be 0, right? At the end of the month, it's got to be 0. And it's very, very handy little tool right here. Now, the requisition thing, what makes this fun is you're not involved, right? There's a configuration tab where you would come out here, and we haven't configured this yet, mostly because the configurations, if we just started throwing stuff out here, would look a little funny. You have to put some thought into it because you configure which items show up in the purchase order. So if you don't tag it, they can't create a purchase order against it, right? So it's not like they can just go create willy-nilly items and just do things on their own. So you have some control there. You have control over the workflow, right? I haven't set up a team yet, but when I do, you'll be able to configure the workflow based on the dollar amount and the person approving, right? And then the other little module we have is an estimate module. Now, I don't know how many of you have worked with estimates in QuickBooks, but they really stink, right? They're very limited. And first of all, you can't estimate by account. We made it so you can, right? I could come out here and say, you know what? I'm not going to estimate job labor costs by item because I don't know. Maybe I have, 6 different payroll items. I just know how much payroll I want to put against this job, right? Maybe I have car and truck expense. I don't want to make it an item. I know it's going to be on the income statement, right? But I want to estimate against it and have it be a show up on the estimate, right? So I can estimate in our little estimate module here by item or by account, and I can also estimate by item. I could come out here and then say, okay, now I want to estimate by item, and I'm going to just choose these 3 items, and I'm going to drop them out here. Now, why would I do that? Well, notice we've split out cost and revenue. We track them separately. QuickBooks only gives you a revenue item, right? It'll give you cost if you use costs average costs. But what if you get a special deal? What if you don't know, right? What if you want to figure out the cost later? You could come out here and drop in everything. This will show up here under the Project Management tab. So if you look here at the Project Management tab, you'll see that this dashboard is one that we're still working on, but here's an estimate that I just dropped in, right? And oh, hey, check it out, it's good, right? Because of where it's at down here. And if you start drilling down in here, this is the job hierarchy, right? You'll see that here's the estimate. Great, right? I mean, this is kind of handy. And of course, you can do things here that you could do in QuickBooks. It's just a little easier. I have estimate types, right? This is configurable. You can come out here and make whatever estimate type you want. And you can also come out here if you so desire, and you can change these if you want to. I would tell you don't do it, but here's a simple estimate view, right? Notice there's a service date. Notice you can assign it to a vendor. You could go into your project. This is one of my other pet peeves. If you use one vendor for the same item all the time, I might want to track if we didn't use that vendor for some reason, right? That was something that we ran into in the field was, why did you use a different vendor for this particular estimate? Well, it was, timing or whatever. But you could also put in a little mini project plan here and say, I expect this to be done by this date. And, if it's not done, help me understand why. So I never found the estimates in QuickBooks to be very useful for reporting. So this is more useful to me. So these are the elements that we have at a high level, and I managed to keep it to about 45 minutes, that we have and you will be able to play with on at the show in June, for sure. It'll be at our booth. You can come see us. You can meet me. I'm tall. Kev is taller, right? Kev is like 6'4". He's a big guy. I'm about 6'2", so you can't miss us. And you come by and you can check out all of this stuff. We can also work with you later if you want to check it out now, if you're curious. And I want to stop now and say, do you guys have any questions?
This is Diane. I do have a question on
Sure.
On the purchase orders and the estimates. Are these replacing what QuickBooks does? Are you doing this outside of QuickBooks?
Yes and no. So on the purchase orders, the requisition process and the item receiver process initiates outside of QuickBooks. But the actual process creates a purchase order and an item receiver in QuickBooks. Right.
So you're feeding it back in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everything. So one of my rules is everything in QuickBooks. Now, on the estimate side, we haven't done that yet because, quite frankly, we ran into kind of an issue. On the estimate, since you can estimate by account, I can't feed that back into QuickBooks. I can only feed in the items, right? And I could feed in the items and the revenue, but I can't feed in the cost. So we will do it, but there's going to be a lot of restrictions there. So
I'm surprised. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I'm surprised about you saying that you can't estimate costs. I do that with clients all the time.
Right. Well, I have never been able to find a way to get good cost estimates in QuickBooks.
Oh,
right?
Give me a call. Get in touch with me afterwards, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. We couldn't estimate by account, right? So usually the way I did it when I was running the construction company was income statement charges, right? G&A charges were account-based, and then WIP charges were item-based. That was normally how we did it. So we had job costs that we didn't actually put in the job, we just expensed, but we wanted to know what job they went to, right? Simple things like mileage or whatever. We would just expense it when it happened. So, but we still wanted to track it, and that was one of the things. And then on the cost side, what we found when we built an estimate was that QuickBooks was taking the costs, the average cost for estimate purposes. And I would end up with a estimate where I'd have a revenue estimate but no cost. The only thing I ever found I could do was create an estimate and then put the costs in the revenue side, and that didn't work very much for us. So,
yeah, get in touch with me afterwards, and I'll show you how it's done. Okay?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be curious to look at it.
Okay.
And then, so the estimates themselves, though, we haven't fed back into QuickBooks yet. We will. It's kind of messy, though. The other piece is that no matter what you do in QuickBooks with costs, and I'm sorry I neglected to mention this, they don't make it available in the SDK. So when you pull estimates out of QuickBooks using their program, their code, there's no cost feature. There's an item, right? They don't, even if you can find a way to key in the costs, we can't get to it. Like budgets in QuickBooks, you can't pull them out. We can't upload budgets. There's nothing you could do with budgets in QuickBooks. There's that layer, and then I apologize, I didn't think about it. I knew there was something in the back of my mind that said, yeah, there's a problem with that. There's actually a couple areas where we ran into where that happened, where the SDK, like transfers. When you do a transfer in QuickBooks, there is no physical way to pull that transaction out of QuickBooks. We figured out something using some fairly hairy coding, but like if you were to look at their SDK design, they don't allow that. They made it very difficult to do this kind of work. They tried to. One real quick question you guys asked. This is our little connector here. It uses the SDK, which means that this piece of software should be installed where the data file is. If you have a server, you can install it there. If you have a desktop or whatever, you can install it there. These are all the companies I have configured to synchronize. Right? You could tell here I was synchronizing stuff here, and it'll tell you it's 100% done. You could see that it took 11 minutes and 17 seconds to update this file. The initial synchronization could take a long time. It could take hours if it's a really big file. But then it does incremental stuff, and it goes much faster. I usually tell people allow for 15 minutes or so to do an incremental update. And this process will also move the purchase orders back and forth, as well as the item receivers, and eventually the estimates when we get there. So anyway, what other questions do you have?
This is Martha King. I'm sorry I was a little bit late attending.
Okay.
And you just mentioned budgets and costs. Did you say that you can't pull budget information out of QuickBooks, but then can you push it back in? If you create budgets on this side, can it go back into QuickBooks?
No, you can't. They don't have any way for us to touch their budgets, right?
But you can have more than one.
In this instance, you can have more than one budget. Okay. Could be a matter of moving your QuickBooks budgets in, and then you can have it right here. Okay.
So just real quick, I'll show you. So we are there's a little configuration that you have to do here too. You can see we're playing with it. But what happens on the forecasting report is you'll see this little blue add plan, right? It'll show up here, right? So I have 2 plans here. And then, you know, what we're doing is we're going to give you in the forecast on, that's going to be everywhere you could create a forecast. So you could forecast on financial information, time information, sales. You could do a separate sales budget if you want to punish the salespeople. Purchases, inventory, right? We support inventory information. We'll show you everything that's in QuickBooks. So if you want to forecast inventory or budget inventory, you could do that. And what this does, and I'll show you real quick, you forecast, you could budget quantity or amount, right? And here I've only configured these items, but let's say I want to look at the chart of accounts, right? I could come in here and say, you know what? I only want to forecast revenue accounts, right? And then I could say, I want to forecast revenue accounts by item. So then I could come in here and I could say, I want to see all items for revenue accounts, right? And give it a second and it'll spin. And then I could come in here and say, you know what, I want to forecast for 2014. And then I could budget by the week or the month, or just a full year. I would do the month usually. And then I could say, use last year's data and tag on 10%, right? And what this will do when I hit create spreadsheet is create a spreadsheet that looks like this. Let me show you one I've already got downloaded, because it could take a second to build the spreadsheet. I think this will work right here. No, that won't work. Let me find one that's a little more interesting. I think this one does. See this? This is for a test, but what it did was it created a sales rep and item and then a whole bunch of stuff out by month. So if there was any data, it would be here, and you could come out here and just tweak it, right? Whatever you needed to do, it's going to create a simple spreadsheet. This looks exactly like the spreadsheet you normally see, right? What you would expect to see on a regular basis, right? So once you do that, then you would come back here, and you would just select the budget you downloaded, and you would just hit Import Report and re-import that spreadsheet. When we did budgeting, we looked at it from every angle, and I just couldn't come up with an easy way to give you like a magic budgeting tool that said, you know, create a budget up from scratch easily. Usually we either start with last year's data, which is what we figured, or you just want a blank sheet that you could just take and create a budget from, right? You could say, you know, revenue is going to be X at whatever level it's going to be. So, you know, when we did budgeting, we took a different approach than a lot of the tools you'll see out there. There's some very cool tools out there, but every time I went with them, they always have some kind of rule or something they start with. Adaptive planning says, well, do you want to budget by metrics? That's great, but, you know, let's be honest, our clients aren't going to pay us $15,000 a year just to do their budget. If they do, you got a great client, right? They're going to pay us, you know, $500 to $1,000 a year, and this allows you to give it to them and say, now let's farm out the work, right? So if they have 6 line managers, you could do a budget by class, separate it out and select each class into a separate spreadsheet and send it to the responsible party and tell them to put together the budget, right? Bring it back, upload it, and look at it and say, is this okay or not? And then do the arbitrary 20% cut that we all do and send it back out to them, right? That's the traditional budget process is you send out the spreadsheet and you know whoever fills it out knows they're going to cut by 20%, so they sandbag, and whoever sends out the budget knows they're going to cut by 20% automatically, right? That's what we do. It's a game. We all do this. So, but this allows you to sort of farm it out instead of you filling this out for them. So, you know, it's a simple tool. And that's really what we've done everywhere is we've tried to build simple tools that are very functional and give you what you need without being bloated or requiring you to understand. The only thing we have that's going to require some training is that report writer, right? Everything else should be pretty self-explanatory. There's probably a little bit to configuring the purchase order module because you got to create teams and stuff, but my guess is you can understand that in about an hour. So, you know, your first hour you spend with it, and then it's easy to configure after that. And of course, you bill for that, right? Every time you configure it, it says whatever. And if they're a managed service client, then once it's configured, it takes a lot of the headache off of you because now you're not creating purchase orders for them if you're doing the bookkeeping. They are, right? You know, think in terms of being able to just take the bill and applying it to an item receipt. If it's not there, you don't do it, right? It's very simple. It takes a lot of the thinking out of the bookkeeping process and makes it easier, if you ask me. So, what else can I show you? What else can we? What other questions do you have?
Tom, this is Christine. I'm wondering, this works with QuickBooks. Does it work with other accounting software that's out there? I guess
it could. It could. We've considered it. So because we have such a tight integration with QuickBooks, we could do the same thing and make it work with some other packages. With Peachtree, the problem is, believe it or not, there's quite a few people because Peachtree is a lot easier to do this with. We've talked about doing Peachtree, not because we would have any competitive advantage. I kind of doubt it. There's a lot of reporting packages for Peachtree. They have their own, too, by the way. They have their own BI tool. And it's kind of a crowded market there. But where we would have an advantage is we would work with both QuickBooks and Peachtree. Imagine having a reporting system that worked the same for both, regardless of client. It'd be nice, right? Yeah. It would be nice. That part we recognize, but we haven't done it yet because the QuickBooks market is really untapped still. So all of our resources are focused. We have other things that are coming that we're talking about, right? We have lots of development that we're still going to do around QuickBooks. You know, we have things in mind that people may not have You know, again, think in terms of I've been where you are. So if you were given a free hand to design stuff to make your life easier, that's the way I approach this. Is I'm the outsourced finance person, and I'm worried about two things, right? I don't want to do silly work. I hate spreadsheets. They're silly, right? They take forever. Clients change their mind. You got to go change the spreadsheet. They get upset about paying a couple $100 a month for a spreadsheet. They think it's, you know, can I train somebody on my staff to do it kind of thing? And then, you know, that's a nightmare in and of itself because now you got to watch this person and audit them. So that stinks. And then the other thing is that I'm lazy, right? I don't want to have to do a lot of work, and I don't want to get sued, right? I don't want a bank or an outside investor to come back and sue me because of something, right? I want to be able to cover myself, and that's how we design. That's how we build, is with those two things in mind, right? Allow you to be as lazy as you want to be, allow you to make sure you don't get sued if you do it right. So, you know, nobody can guarantee you're not going to get sued, right? People are strange. They do strange things. But as you work through this, you have an added layer of complexity as an outsourced finance professional to make sure that you are comfortable that your clients aren't playing games, right? How many people have had clients run personal expenses through their business, right?
Don't they all?
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, all of a sudden they magically just got a Lexus that they need for the business. That's the outside one. I had one client that was like, I want to run my dry cleaning through it. That's a minor expense, right? But we saw that. I was like, no. No, you can do what you want, but no. And I'm not gonna tell people about it because you'll get sued when you don't know about it. If you could show that you told the client no, and the client did it on their own, they can't sue you because now the client made the misrepresentation, right? Not you. You don't have any because they sue you for being negligent, basically, right? For you should have seen this and you didn't, not because you somehow supported it. They know you didn't, right? Now this client's only problem was with the IRS, so I was like, nah, you do what you want because they didn't have any banking relationships or anything, so it wasn't such a big deal. But you know, where this can become a little more interesting is if you have a partnership and they have an operating agreement. How many people have actually read the operating agreements? They're heinous, right? And, you know, think about the operating agreement in terms of everything that's in that operating agreement that the managing partner can or cannot do. You should sort of keep your eye on because those partners might sue you. There's a much bigger exposure there because I worked with a partnership where the managing partner was making loans to his buddies, and that was specifically forbidden in the partnership agreement. And I walked from that engagement because there's no way I was going to be in the middle of that. And yes, he got sued, right? But when you're reading through these things, these are the layer that you have to deal with that, you know, maybe an average person wouldn't, right? If you're the finance person inside the organization with an operating agreement like that, they can at least tell the partners, I was told I had to do this to keep my job, and they probably won't fire or sue that person, right? But if you're the outside party, they got no qualms with suing you. They're coming after you saying you should have caught this. So, you know, what I would say is, you know, if I can track those pieces of information on the client or whatever I'm worried about, if there's a certain debt to equity ratio they need to keep, I should probably have a chart of that and say, look, you're violating a covenant right here. What are you going to do about it, right? It allows you to be a little more proactive. And, you know, certainly you can do this with spreadsheets. Certainly you can do this with some of the other tools. They're just a little more cumbersome, I think. You know, spreadsheets. I'm sorry?
Yes. Oh, okay. I'll get that.
Spreadsheets just are you know, they're prone to error, and they're challenging to maintain. So I think this is sort of where we came from when we designed this, was that sort of thought process, not just, hey, let's build a cool reporting tool around QuickBooks and push it out.
This is Diane. I have a question on a couple things. One is access. So how does this actually, you're setting this up through a web connection with the client's QuickBooks file, and who all is accessing it? You're accessing it, the client's accessing?
So it's actually set up with a piece of software. This software sits on the server where the QuickBooks file is, right? And it communicates using web services with our server. Those are all secured. Those web services, you can't hack them. They're SSL encrypted. I guess you could try. 256-bit or whatever. I can get it for you if you're curious. The actual data itself sits on our equipment behind the firewall. So the only people who can access the data are people who have usernames and passwords. We could see what's going on, yes. We generally don't look, right? Our concern is if there's some hiccup that you find, we're going to go track that down. But other than that, you would control who could see this. So you need a username and password. You'll see it says Welcome Tom here. That's me. I can log into all sites, but you would have a site that would say, you know, admin or your name is the admin, and then we would have a screen that looks like this, actually. I don't think which one is this? Actually, I could show you here. It's a little more interesting. Let me go here, because I've hidden the screen here just to make it easier. There's a user screen right here. All of this is configurable. Notice I've set up a couple of different users here, right? And I could create teams down here. These users then, you can manage what they can see here. There's two ways you can do that. You can let them see whatever you see on the site, right, but restrict it by elements. So you could say, here, let me show you here. It'll be easier if I show you here. I could come in here and say, I want to restrict Natalie, right? I want to restrict Natalie, and I only want her to see, I'm going to let her look at everything, but I want her to only see her class. So I could come in here and say, Natalie can only see Natalie Chapman. And when she looks at this, all she'll see is Natalie Chapman. Everything. She'll see cash for Natalie Chapman, financial performance. By the show, we're going to make it so that you can also say that they can't see these tabs, right? So that they can only see what you want them to see and the tabs you want them to see. So if you want them to look at cash management, which most people wouldn't, that's a pretty high-level one, that'll only be exposed to a few people.
So if I understand it right, you would get the client to put this on their server, and then you can determine who can see what. Either you can see certain things, or you can see everything, I assume,
right.
And then certain employees on their site can only see certain things.
Right. You can restrict it by employee. Right.
How about hosted? How about hosted environments?
Well, that's all it is a hosted environment. This
well, no, but I mean if their QuickBooks is in a hosted environment, are you linked in with Rate Networks and InSync and some of those other hosting services?
It depends on the hosted environment and who it is. The hosters are a fun breed. I don't know how many you've dealt with them. For you guys, they're fun. For us, it can be a nightmare. Cloud9 is great. Unidata can be a challenge on occasion. Rate Networks, it just depends. So the short answer is it will work, right? It's because QuickBooks is such a simple product, it will work. It's just a question of getting it into their environment and testing it. Sometimes we have to make modifications for them. Sometimes they have to make modifications for us. So the hosters right now that we are working with for sure is Cloud9 is the first one, because that was the first company, the first client we had that came to us was on Cloud9. And then we'll go from there. But it should work. It also depends on which version you're in. If you're in their sort of group environment, right, versus a separate dedicated server, that looks different technically. So we haven't played with that route yet, but we will. It's just a matter of we need the critical mass to go out and do it. Because my guess is in that environment, I'm going to have to recode things. I'm going to have to make a special little integration application like this just for those environments, because they use multiple servers. And if you're curious, we can walk through it.
Second question is on pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you handle the pricing?
So we charge by the data file. also, we have a very small user charge of $1.99 a user, and that exists simply to make sure people don't create 6 billion users, because they will. And it gives us the ability, it gives some people incentive to make sure that if they have an old employee, they delete them, right? And then this piece of software and this dashboard right here are $19.99 a month. So it's about $20 a month for a basic dashboard. Every one of these tabs across the top is about $8, right? So if you want cash management and financial performance, it would be $28 a month, right? If you want to throw AR in there, it would be $36. Now, if you say, you know what, we're not going to do that. We're just going to buy the basic dashboard and go with the report manager here, and I'm going to design my own, that's $45 a month a client. It's another $25 on top of the $20. So you could build out a reasonably solid dashboard interface for your clients for about $45 to $50 a month, right? Depending on if you want to use pre-designed dashboards and just put them out there, or if you want to design them yourself, or you could combine them. You could say, you know what, I'm going to start with the AR dashboard you built, and I mean, you could just do this, right? For one client, get them to pay for it, and then get the custom design thing on it, and just modify the dashboard we built. That's why it's there, right? We literally put these out here because people were they were telling us repeatedly, I don't want to learn how to design this. I just want to put it in. So everything else up here is $8. Now, when we look here at this is a little bit more. I want to say that these combined are $25 a month for estimates and requisitions. We will split them. We haven't yet. They'll probably end up being like $15 a month, though. And then the budgeting is either $8 or $12 a month. I think it's $8, but I have to check. And then, you know, the rest of it should be pretty straightforward. There's probably a few other charges that could pop up. We have a whole price list, and I think Kev sent it out. If you're not on that email, if you send me an email and it's tom@EssentialCFO.com, I can just get you the full price list, and that might be the easiest. Because I hate to say this, but I do all the development work. Pricing is Kev, and I believe right now he's probably in the middle of a root canal. So I could call him, but he would be angry. And I'll certainly get you a copy of the price list. But the idea here is under $50 a client for the simple clients, because that's where we need to be, right? If you have a simple client, a bookkeeping client, for instance, what we decided, the way I would see this kind of working for people is if you do bookkeeping work where you have either staff or yourself, you're doing bookkeeping work, and you know, you don't want to have your clients messing around in QuickBooks, which is a pretty common complaint because they change things all the time. And then you could give them access to this and cut them out of QuickBooks, right? And now, you know, for $20 or $30 a month, that's a pretty inexpensive way to do it. You could bill it through to the client and tell the client you're going to pay for it. You could eat it yourself and then build it into the margin. There's a million ways to do this.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Well, I sure do appreciate it. Guys, I appreciate the time. I hope it's a beautiful day there in Michigan.
No, it's not.
It's not? Oh,
no, rainy and cloudy. It's very rainy and nasty today.
Is it? Well, in Denver, it's about 65 degrees right now and sunny. But tomorrow, don't get too excited. Tomorrow I got to get on a plane to Chicago.
Oh, good. So, into this.
Yeah, I'm going to come in. That's why I'm so not excited about going back to where it's cold and whatever. We already finished our spring softball season out here in Denver, just to give you an idea. Oh my God! Yeah. We're getting ready to roll into summer next week. So I'm sorry you guys got to deal with it. It's coming. I promise you, winter is going to end at some point. It has to, right?
Well, I think we're just going to go to summer and back to winter, actually.
Yeah, well, that's the usual.
All right, well, thanks so much.
Thank you, everybody. You guys have a good day.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, bye.